Awesome. So this is an interesting series. I gotta admit, when we talk about doing a series on Sabbath, part of me thought, like that thought is like, oh, this sounds great, but like, who has time for that? Anyone else? Like think something like that? Oh, thank you, Josh. When we talk about doing Sabbath, like it's one of those things that we feel like we don't really have a lot of time to do. And if I'm honest, like it feels like too many like places in our lives, there's not like a lot of space left over, not a lot of margin. There's my dad. Everyone say hi, Darwin. Awesome. If I was to like talk about our lives, often this is kind of what our lives sort of look like. That's sands from the desert of Azúcar, just in case you're wondering, which means sugar in Spanish. Anyways, our lives are kind of like this. Like there's some big things in there, and there's like a bunch of little things that are kind of peppered throughout in there. There's this big rock. Let me ask you, to you guys, what might a big rock represent? So if I say this represents your lives, what might a rock like this represent? What do you think? What are some of the big rocks in our lives? If I say this is your schedule, this is your life, and then I pull out like a huge rock like this. Oh, thank you, Brett. Appreciate it. Okay, work. Thanks for kicking us off this morning. So maybe it represents work. What might be another big rock? I'm trying to dig another one out of here. School? Okay, good. I appreciate that. Yeah. School, or like maybe like extra job training, like if you're not in school. Yeah, good. So there's like all these kind of big rocks. What about like these smaller rocks, these like pebbly, or as they call it in my neck of the woods, 57, which is just the size of the pebble.
Baseball games.
Oh, good. Okay. Baseball games. What else?
Practices.
Okay, good. Practices. What else? What might this 57 represent? These like pebbles. What do you think? Miss Jessica, what do you think? I'm big on calling on people. I hope that's okay.
Taking care of the chickens.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Taking care. Do you also have chickens? Or nice. All right. What do you think, Victoria? What might these rocks represent?
Taking care of our children.
Good. Okay. Maybe taking care of other people's children. This might be our children, or maybe it just kind of depends. So our schedules get really crammed full, and one of the reasons why we're doing this series is that oftentimes what happens is we get to the end of ourselves, the end of our week, and we discover that like something doesn't fit that it should, and I don't want to end up with like glass shards everywhere. So sometimes what we'll do is maybe we'll get rid of like something else that might be important, and we're like, well, God sort of fits in there, and we can kind of cram them in there maybe if we want to. Or we feel like we have to get rid of a bunch of other little things, to kind of make them fit. I would suggest that what we're trying to do is to help you get your lives where these bigger priorities sort of fit in first. Now, these jars have about the same amount of content. I'm just going to be more strategic, which is what we're asking you guys to do, is think about how can I live my life in a way that's a little bit more strategic, where the things that same amount of things I need to fit in my schedule are going to fit. So let's see if we can do this here. So I fit the most important things in first. We have large rocks like God, worship, family, relationships. Hopefully rest is one of those big things. I want you guys to get to a spot where in your family life, rest isn't just something that you just think about, but it's something that you do. It's fit earlier, but now I'm wondering if it's still going to work. Maybe I didn't have God in there. Oh, that would be a tragedy, wouldn't it? Or maybe you'll just have grace and you'll kind of get. So smaller rocks, we said smaller, lesser important responsibilities, okay? So if the large rocks are God and worship and family and relationships and rest, I would submit to you that maybe these other rocks are things like family, like work, school, maybe ministry, sports, chores, your relationships, and how we worship should always be the most important thing in our lives. And that's sort of seen through how we read the Bible. So if we read the Bible, we're reading it in a way where our most important goal in life is bringing people into a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's why we're here. We're not here for any other thing. Although all-inclusives are fun, that's not actually why we're here. They are fun, I've heard, and I've actually been on one. So if our goal is relationships and helping other people to find, we're just going to pretend, okay? Ta-da! I promise you it fit earlier. I just am nervous now, which happens also. So what happens is the smaller rocks, work, school, ministry, sports, chores, those things are there. What do you think about sand, the sands of the Asukar? What do you think this might represent? So the big things are our relationships, Sabbath, time with God. What do you think this might be? It's minuscule, so it's not that important. Thank you. Yes, distractions. I wonder what kind of distractions those could be. Sorry, it was a reel. It was really funny. It was a guy with chickens, and his wife bought another one, but not relatable at all. Social media, countless minor commitments, emails, text messages, all those things. But here's the thing, like if we do properly prioritize our lives, then these things actually will filter in the way that they're supposed to. I feel really good about this working. And all of a sudden, it's a bit overwhelming, but it's actually doable. But it's because we've learned to properly prioritize the things rather than letting the minuscule things dominate our schedule. If you notice, the sands of the Asukar are on the bottom, and everything else we've just kind of tried to pile in on top of it. And those things didn't necessarily work. Not everything fit initially. But when we properly order those things, they do. And I love it because that is a beautiful picture of reality. If you missed a sheet, they're over on that little table as well as some pens. And then I'd also like to just bless you with one. Here you go. Anyone else like a sheet? These little handouts. Did you guys get one? Yeah. Here you go. Yep. Good. All right. Awesome. So, there we go. No matter how carefully we plan things, things will always show up. But the goal of Sabbath and healthy priorities isn't to eliminate those interruptions. It's to make sure that those interruptions don't become the foundation of how we operate, of what we do. Order matters. Because when we allow those lesser things to dominate our schedule, then the most important things get squeezed out. So again, I would like you to think about, what if I made Sabbath one of those. I found this rock down there. I thought it was hilarious because it looks like a potato. But what if potato rock became Sabbath? What if this was Sabbath to us? What if we prioritize Sabbath in a way where it became important? So before we talk about what Sabbath looks like, I need to ask an important question. Why do you think we should even care? Why would God command us to do something that feels so unrealistic? God didn't know about social media and text messages and emails and my boss when he created Sabbath. That was for ancient people in ancient time. Why do you think it's important for us to practice today? Why might that be important?
Allows time for God to replenish us.
I like it. Allows time for God to replenish us. It's good. I'm not looking for anything specific. Just whatever. This is what it means to you, maybe.
So he built us, so he understands the instruction manual. So if he's saying there's something we probably need to do, it probably has to do with something that would be good for us.
I like it. We were designed. He's the designer, and he's saying, this is part of the design. We should probably do it. I like it. That's good. What else? Yeah.
In
It's what God did in creation, and I don't think we can go wrong when we follow what God did.
That's fair.
That's an example.
Yeah, I like it. God did it. Well, we should probably follow his example. Okay, good. What else do you think?
I think, Mark, it's interesting that like you brought up, like, and I've heard that before, that because our world is different now, and because life is different now, that it feels antiquated to do something like that. I would actually say it's more important now, probably, than it was back then, because, I mean, we are encumbered with so much information because of the internet, because of our phones, like way more information. We take in way more information than I think we were ever designed to take in. And so finding the ability to disconnect and pause, like our lives are faster paced now than they have ever been, because things got more efficient. So it's actually more important to do that.
Yeah.
I think now than it was.
Yeah. God's reminding us of something that we, because he knows something about us that we often forget. We were never created to live at the pace that we currently live. So when God gives this command in Exodus chapter 20, who was the original audience? Who was he saying this to? Do you recall? Right after the Exodus, there's this large group of people leaving Egypt. Yeah, good. The Israelites, right? So it's this large group of people that are leaving there, and he's not giving them one more thing to do. He's rescuing them from becoming slaves again. And that detail, it matters more than we realize, because God isn't just like regulating behavior here. He's re-teaching identity. They were slaves. They'd just come out of Egypt for generation. Their world had been measured by quotas. Not us, but more bricks, more work, more output, more pressure. Wake up, produce, collapse, repeat. That was like their world. So their identity wasn't beloved people of God. It was efficient labor system. They were valued as long as they were producing. Sounds unique to them, doesn't it? Just kidding. And God steps into that world and he essentially says, like, we're going to have to retrain everything that you think life is about. So before they even know how to build a nation, organize worship, manage leadership systems, God gives them something that sounds almost irresponsible to a culture that was just focused on productivity. One day every week, I want you to stop. And if I was there, like, I don't know about you, but like I'd have follow-up questions like, well, what do you mean by stop? Like, for clarity, right? Even the things that make me feel useful, or, okay, how about the things that could technically be labeled as ministry, but maybe stretched a little bit? Should I stop doing those things as well? Because a lot of us, when we talk about Sabbath and we talk about rest, we don't struggle with like full rebellion. We struggle with justified busyness, the kind that feels righteous, but it slowly drains your soul, especially if you do any kind of like ministry. It can like slowly just suck away at you. And it's fascinating because God wasn't afraid that they would become lazy, but he was afraid that they would forget that they belonged to him. Slavery or work or even school sports, these things don't just control your schedule. What they do is they rewrite your sense of worth. And the reality is that most of us, we don't bow down to statues in this literal sense, but we absolutely bow down to productivity. And so when we rest, we feel guilty. We feel like we're like breaking this commandment, and we feel anxious when our phones just sit there or they're off. And we feel like something's going to collapse without us. Let me ask you, what might be the problem with that mindset that if we turn our phones off for a while that everything will collapse? What do you think might be the problem with that mindset?
It puts us at the center.
Absolutely. It puts us at the center. Good. What else might be the mindset in us feeling like everything will collapse if we turn our phones off?
God doesn't have control over things. Lack of faith, I guess.
Good, yeah. Lack of faith. We're not trusting that God is in control of all things. I love that answer. If I believe God is sovereign, I believe that He's in charge of all things. As a pastor, like at my last church, there was a lot of this pressure that I experienced, and like I had to come to this like realization, like if everything collapses because I turn my phone off, I'm a terrible leader. Like I have not trained my team to lead while in my absence. Like that's my fault, not their fault. I need to do something better so that I can rest, which I know sounds like more work, but in the end, it actually takes it off of your shoulders. And we're made to feel this way in culture, that we should be doing something. So here's what Jesus says in Mark 2:27. I didn't see if anyone collected those Post-it notes.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, awesome. Okay, Mark 2:27. Okay.
Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, not the people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath.
So, what do you think this means? That Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Although, what version did you read that from? CSB? NLT, yeah. Read it again, nice and loud. It almost answers itself in that version.
Then Jesus said to them, the Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not the people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath.
So Sabbath wasn't created to burden people. Sabbath was meant as a gift. You belong to God. There's something that is deeply spiritual about intentionally stopping. It says, God, you can carry what I cannot. That God, you're working even when I'm not working. That you're enough. It says to start with rest, and then we work from that place. And what Tony and I and Mark McCain, what we're trying to teach through this class is that over the next several weeks is that we want to lower that pressure, that this isn't legalism, this isn't good Christians turn their phones off for 24 hours. Like this is an experiment, hopefully a family experiment. And it asks this one simple question. I think I put it up there maybe. Yes. If this experiment worked, what would we hope changes in our home? If this works, what do we hope would change in our home? Now, I think in future sessions, we're going to have you guys sitting around tables and like doing a little bit more discussion. I got really nervous, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I don't know. So a little less discussion is going to happen like in a large group context. But again, in future sessions, we'll be sitting around the table and we'll have more family interaction, that kind of a thing. But I would love for you, maybe over lunch, to just to think about that. If we Sabbath, what do we hope would happen, would accomplish? So there's a couple of really simple things. If it's going to happen in real life, a Sabbath is going to be designed for real life, not ideal life, not Instagram life, but real life. What might that look like? So how do we actually start? So there's a couple of questions. The first would be, when do we start? Now, every family is different, every schedule is different, and that's not a modern problem. That's a fallen world, limited time and competing demands problem. So instead of trying to like force everything into one rigid window, what I want to do is to, Tony and I, is to offer like a couple different ways to think about having Sabbath and what that might look like. We want to do what the wisdom literature often does in Scripture, with, again, not this one-size-fits-all kind of window, but guided paths that help us to walk into real circumstances. So in Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11, here's what it says.
Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy.
So God commands this rhythm, remember the Sabbath, to keep it holy. But it feels like, again, being removed from that, this is removed from the realities of the way we lived. So what we want to do is not actually lower the standard. What we want to do is actually try to live it. Because the danger in this isn't that we would aim too low. I don't think that's any of you guys. But I think the danger is that we would aim so high that it feels impractical. Like we're like, oh, let's do this. And then all of a sudden it's like the reality is like, well, we can't do that. It's impossible. Our family's just too busy, or all these things are going on, whatever. So again, 3 standard windows that reflect how most families actually live right now. Not perfect worlds, but real ones. Because again, the goal isn't perfection, it's consistency and realism. Okay, so the first option is what we call the traditional block, okay? This would be Friday, 6 p.m. to Saturday at 6 p.m. And this tends to work best for families who have a standard Monday through Friday type of work rhythm. So the Elliots and the Foremans and the McCains and other families we're committing to also practice this alongside of you so we can have this conversation as well. I haven't talked to Kristen, so I can't say which one we're going to do for sure, but there's definitely 2 of these that we lean pretty heavily into already. But for us, the Elliott family, there's something that's powerful about starting the weekend with intentional rest. We already take Friday off. It's our Friday date day. And then Saturday, it's open. Maybe there's ministry. Maybe there's some event to go to or a play or something that happens. Typically, those things also happen after 6 p.m. So that might work for the Elliots, that kind of a thing. There are a lot of chores that have to get done. Animals have to be fed and watered. But we would figure that out, right? So before you ask this one, ask what normally fills your Friday night. Because it's easy to say, let's just do that one. So ask, what does your normal Friday night look like? Are there things that are life-giving rhythms or default habits? And if you actually protected this time, what would you be saying no to in order to say yes to God's rhythm of rest? Like, that's an important question. Because again, it looks great up there, but in our homes, sometimes it looks a lot messier. All right, here's the second option. This one's also very appealing. It's the Lord's Day block, as Tony calls it. This would be Sunday 12:30 to Monday 12:30. So for a lot of families, we recognize that Saturday is not a quiet day. It's travel sports, it's tournaments, practices, long drives. So instead of trying to fight that reality, this rhythm anchors Sabbath right after worship, and it kind of extends it to the start of the week. It reframes Monday not as dread, but Monday as overflow. So as you look at this option and consider it for your family, you might ask, what does your Sunday afternoon and Monday morning usually look and feel like right now? If you're like me, in my old life, prior to moving to the MOV and being Tim's neighbor, Mondays were hectic. Mondays were very angsty. And Mondays were very not calming at all. A lot of pressure, exhaustion that continued from the weekend. But what would it mean for you if maybe instead of dreading Monday, where it felt like it could be actually the first, just closing out in worship and getting ready to start a week that's focused on God. Maybe intentionality and purpose rather than just dread. And maybe Monday won't feel so Monday after all. I feel like there's a Winnie the Pooh. Mondays. I don't know. So Monday could feel like worship rather than just survival. But the question might be whether you're willing to let Monday become a spiritually significant day, not just socially unavoidable like it kind of is right now. Here's the third option. The third option would be a midweek block. So some of you work to do shift work. Your week isn't like a traditional weekend rhythm. So the key here isn't the day itself, but there's a pattern. You're choosing a 24-hour repeatable pattern that becomes this protected time. It might move from week to week, but the structure's still there. Before you ask this, you just ask yourself, what works for our schedule right now? Would this fit my shift schedule or that kind of a thing? Especially if you're in hospital work or clinical work or anything where it's my schedule shifts and there's these blocks of time where I'm working multiple days in a row. This one is not the less spiritual by any means. This might be the most practical because it refuses to pretend that your life fits someone else's pattern. So this might be perfect for you. What I'd like you to do, again, is over lunch, just have an intentional conversation, or maybe even on your drive home, or actually It's 10:06. There'll be about 5 or 10 minutes, I'm sure, at the end of this. I'd love for you just to circle up as a family and say, all right, let's just talk about these different options, and are these even something that we can consider? And if we consider it, how many weeks can it be? Let's look at our schedule and find out when we could start something like this. Because the idea that we would love for you to do is to start this sooner than later, right? Figure out what might work. But just for funsies, if you have a pen, circle the one that you feel like, you know what, this one seems the most appealing to me. And then you could even compare notes. Like, did Jamie circle the same thing that I circled? Or, man, I can't believe, Brock circled that one. I wasn't even thinking about that, And you might have a conversation about why that one works better. So step 2 would be this, that you define what we call a pre-Sabbath buffer, okay? So again, setting you up for success. This is where most Sabbaths fail. Not during Sabbath, before Sabbath. So we're going to name this thing that causes this tension. So you write down this 2-hour window before Sabbath begins. And this isn't optional downtime. This is preparation time. This is where you are transitioning from chaos into peace. During this time, you want to do whatever things that you need to do. Chores are wrapped up. And so, again, obviously, if you have like other living creatures that are dependent on you, you're like, well, I'm sorry the whole flock died, but hey, Sabbath, am I right? Let's just sacrifice to the Lord, sweet incense offering. And the husband's like, yeah, praise God. No, I'm just kidding. I actually like my animals, but there are some things that you're going to have to do, obviously. It's weird, but it's very cathartic for me to go down 6 a.m., feed and water everybody, and just talk, and then I come up and I'm a much just happier, kinder, rested person. Laundry is not left half finished. Dishes are not left for later. Work emails are not bleeding into the evening. Backpacks from Monday are packed and clothes are out. Try to just figure these things out, especially if they're something that causes a lot of drama in your family. Try to get it done ahead of time. Groceries are handled, dinner's prepared in advance or simplified. I don't know if you have an Instapot or a crock pot. Like, my wife is the master at, we're going to be gone for 15 hours. She's like, I already have something in there. I'm like, what? And I get home and there's this meal and it smells delicious and it's been cooking for however long it's been cooking in the Instapot. But refuse to drag the unfinished edges of your week into your time of rest. It matters. Because what steals Sabbath more than anything is not big rebellion. It's these small carryover items. This mental checklist that never shuts off. Right, moms? So you name it. The buffer. Protect it. Treat it like part of the Sabbath itself, not separate from it. The third thing would be identify the hurry trigger. Identify the hurry trigger. We all have one. Every family has one. What do you think? What might be the hurry triggers in your life? What do you think? Who's willing to throw themselves under the bus? What do you think? What triggers your hurry trigger? Trips your hurry trigger?
Phone calls.
Phone calls, yeah. Perfect. Good. What else?
I'll just go with any notifications at all.
Okay, any and all notifications. Very true. Yeah, absolutely. What's that? Yes, teams or plans that you've already, you're like, I have this thing, right? Yeah. Or I have this tomorrow, or I have this in 2 days. And you're just, moms mostly, are constantly preparing, okay, we do this, that way we can get to this, this, and this, and still have time to squeeze this in there, right? Good. Yeah. Text message, sports obligation, a late chore that always shows up at the worst time. Something even simplified is just one more errand. It's good to identify it specifically. What is it? For me, it's definitely my cell phone. I would love to go to a flip phone, but flip phones don't edit video and post things very well. So I could, honestly. I'm not promoting myself in any way. I've reached this with a bloody, stumped fingers, kicking and clawing resolution in my life that over the years has caused a lot of extra drama I didn't need. I have every notification except for text messages and phone calls off. And it's because I watched my marriage struggle at points because I'd get a notification from an app or an email, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, my night was like, I was fine, we're having fun, we're, you know, like, oh, that's hilarious. I read the email, and then she's like, what happened? I'm like, nothing. I got an email. She's like, great, what is it about? Right? Derailed completely. Could that have waited a couple days? Can I solve it right there at 11 p.m.? No, I can't really do anything. And again, getting back to like the sovereignty of God being in control, like if there just has to be a point where we say, you know what, all these things can wait for a 24-hour period. So identify what commonly hijacks your transition into rest. And maybe like during the next few weeks, several weeks, there's just an agreement that you make. Hey, let's not add anything new to our schedule. They're already maxed out. We already look like this, and we want to look like that. So let's not add any new commitments, not even baked potato stone. Let's not add any new commitments to our lives during this time so that we can set ourselves up for success. Or maybe our phones go on do not disturb at a certain time. Parents of teenagers, let me encourage you, the best way you can help your teen, this is for free, this is free advice. Don't let your student have their cell phone in the room at night. But they have to have an alarm clock. They make these really cool things where you plug them into the wall and there's these digital numbers and it makes noise when they need to get up in the morning. Though, in my opinion, I want to overstate it. I'd say over half of the counseling that Chris and I do are dealing with this device and drama it's caused typically after they're in bed sleeping. That's just a free thought for you. Whether it's a video they've watched or it's a conversation they've gotten into or a friend who's experiencing life-threatening something or other. So just have that in mind. So the freebie was, my suggestion as parents of teenagers is take the device and she's offended, she's leaving, great. I'm sorry, Sarah. I apologize, I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry. She'll probably yell at me later. To charge them in like the kitchen or whatever. And if parents need to do it as well, do it as well. But yeah, have this, I'm telling you, it'll help. All right, so here's your homework. The homework is a family conversation. Don't just walk out with this sheet of paper. I would love for you to talk about what happens next for us as a family. Maybe you talk about that bomb I just dropped on your family of like, whoa, no cell phones, what? Maybe just talk about that for a few minutes. If this experiment worked, what do we hope changes in our family? Because honestly, a lot of us, we cannot continue the unsustainable pace of what's already happening in our homes. We're already tired, we're already overwhelmed, but what needs to change so that we can embrace Sabbath? What needs to change so that we can have some of the rest that we desperately desire? And if it is like a weekend Sabbath, maybe when we come into church, it's not like fresh off of a fight about who hogged the bathroom, but maybe it's ready to worship and to give God the glory. And maybe as we come in, it's a little bit less about our own preferences and a lot more about giving God the glory and the honor that He deserves through our giving and our worship and our conversations and our jumping into the Word together and our going to Sunday school and listening to Josh talk about some amazing things from God's Word. Let me pray for you guys. Actually, before I pray, do you have any questions for me? Any questions about anything I talked about? I'm okay with a little bit of an uncomfortable silence, so just think for a minute. Is this doable? What questions do I have? What did he mean by that? or you can come up and ask me afterwards. Be happy to answer your questions. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be able to serve these families, to be a part of what you're doing on this earth, to be a part of spreading the gospel message, to be a part of helping others to discover what a relationship with your Son looks like. I pray that the Sabbath will help us to be better at peopling. Lord, that creating Sabbath will help us to have more margin so that we're kinder, especially to the lady at Walmart. Yeah, she's grumpy, but God, what an amazing gift we have to speak positively and to bring joy into someone else's life. Not of our own strength or accord, but because of the relationship that we have with you, to share that with someone else in such a way where their day is transformed. So, Father, I pray that we would seek margin, we would seek Sabbath, Father, so that we can be the stewards of the opportunities that you've given us, the gifts and abilities, have the energy to pour into others without feeling so drained. And God, that we would, and I'm talking to myself first and foremost, think so much less of ourselves in the process. God, we love you. We thank you. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Thanks.